Do you want to know how to discipline a high-functioning autistic teenager? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I have experience with that. I teach parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about high-functioning autistic teens. In this video, we're going to be talking about some of the concerns that parents might have with disciplining a high-functioning autistic teenager. And then we're going to be talking about what you can do to really nail that discipline and parenting with your high-functioning teen. I've had experience parenting autistic teens. For many years, I was a therapeutic treatment care parent for troubled teens. They were all between the ages of 12 and 18, and almost all of them were neurodiverse. And multiple of them had multiple neurodiversities. So autism was a very common thing that the teens coming to our home had. So I was also raising my own children at the same time, and they are not autistic and they are very neurotypical, but we always had at least two neurodiverse teens in our home at the same time. In fact, it was those years doing therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens and these neurodiverse teens that actually made it so that people started asking me to be on television programs, to write books, and to do the teaching that I'm doing today. People saw these youth come into my home and they would transform. So I want to tell you about one teen in particular. So there was a girl in my home, we'll call her Ellie. When Ellie came to my home, she was very resistant to change. Now she was high functioning, so she could do some changing, but it still was really hard for her. And she'd had an experience with parenting in the past where everything was very emotional. And for her, this would get her all worked up and she would go to the wrong part of her brain and she just couldn't think at that point. In fact, she would start saying and doing things that were sometimes irrational. Sometimes she would start doing things with her body. She would start, trying to hit, trying to slam, trying to hit herself, those types of things, because she would get so frustrated if things got emotional. Now, lucky for her, our parenting style with the teaching self-government parenting approach is non-emotional. So this is a real big benefit to autistic teens because the autistic brain gets sidelined by the emotion. That makes it so that they can't think anymore and they get very frustrated when that happens. So it's really nice to have something that is predictable. So let me tell you what happened with Ellie. She was very nervous when she came to our home for multiple reasons. New environment, still in foster care, treatment care. So she's still dealing with all those issues of being displaced from her family and stuff like that. But then also new changes, like new skills, new rules, new home, new parenting style, and so she didn't know what to be nervous about or not. So at first she started going out of control a lot because things were new and that was scary for her. But we did a lot of pre-teaching. So we prepared Ellie step by step. This is a skill that we're going to use. These are the steps. We're going to say it the same every time. Ellie, here's a skill for you so that you can get your way a lot of the times if you use this skill in your communication. So we told her exactly how things would happen, to the point that we even showed her a chart and said, this is the process of how we will go through interactions. And when she saw, okay, if I make this choice, they are going to use this skill. If I make this choice, they are going to use this skill. And she could see how the different interactions would go as far as a flow. This made a great big difference for her. Suddenly she was more at ease and she put it to the test. The first few times that she got corrected, she was a little bit nervous. But after she saw that we indeed followed through with the flow and the structure that we told her that we would do, suddenly she didn't feel as nervous about being corrected anymore. So what are some of these skills and principles of self-government that you can use to help your high-functioning autistic teen? So if you have already subscribed to this channel, then you know there are so many things here that teach skills and principles of self-government. There's no way we're going to be able to go into all of them, so be sure to check out some of those other videos that maybe you haven't seen yet if you still need more help after this. But let's start with some of the basics. The first thing I recommend, no matter whether your teenager is neurotypical or neurodiverse, is to help them understand what is the point to our relationships, who are we, and where are we headed. So years ago, I wrote a book called Roles: The Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success. And in this book, there is a family and they struggle with some of the children staying on task, some of the children helping, some of the children being a little bit more addicted to devices and stuff like that. And then you see the difference between the parents too. They're not even fully on the same page. And then you see them learn about roles, and they learn who they are and where they are headed. Now, when I talk about roles, I'm not talking about responsibilities. Responsibilities sometimes crop out of a role, but that doesn't mean that they are the same thing. Anybody can make a dinner, for instance. It doesn't have to be mother that makes the dinner. It doesn't have to be father who goes to the office or who goes to work. Anyone can make money. Anyone can make dinner. But who mother is to her family really matters, and who father is to his family really matters too. There's other videos on this channel about roles that you can absolutely check out, so I'm not going to go into tons of depth there, but I just want you to recognize that if you're going to be disciplining a high-functioning autistic teen, they need to know who they are to you and who you are to them. That basic information is something firm that they can hold on to. And then they also need to know where they are headed. So in the TSG parenting course, I talk about creating a 20-year vision. The 20-year vision is a 20-year picture into the future of what type of relationships you're creating. Now, sometimes autistic people have a struggle with futuristic envisioning, and so that can seem non-concrete and can seem difficult. So what I would recommend if you have an autistic person in your family is to act out what you hope that 20-year vision will be like, and then say, look, doesn't this feel great? Do you love our connection here? Look how we're having such a fun time playing this game. And then discuss what things you liked about the interaction. So base where you're headed off of a lived experience. For somebody who's autistic, that can make a big difference. After you get a picture of who you are and where you're headed, then you'll definitely want to start teaching some skills. So how are we going to get there? We need to have ways of communication that don't put us in the wrong parts of our brain. I would definitely teach your teenager about how their brain works, about how the front brain is the part that does all of the problem solving and the planning. That's your prefrontal cortex. Talk about that midbrain and the emotional capacity of the midbrain, and the back brain and the fight or flight and, the panic part of the brain. Talk about what happens to them when they are in each of those parts of their brain. Help them evaluate that so that they can identify the difference. Maybe even play a little bit with emotions so that they can see, oh, when I'm screaming, and hitting the floor, I feel myself going to that panic back brain, even though I'm pretending it. Do a little bit of role play practice. Warning, sometimes autistic people do not like doing role plays because they feel like it's not real. And it isn't real, that's the whole point. But sometimes when you do role plays, you can actually feel some of the real feelings or emotions that go along with a real interaction, but you can do it in a simulated setting, which is really nice. There's not the same emotional investment, and so then you can help a person through it. So just pre-teach them that role plays are going to be part of their life, and they'll have to get used to that a little bit, because with good self-government training, it does include role playing or practicing things the right way ahead of time. Then there are the skills of self-government that you'll want to teach your teens that are going to help with even more predictability and problem solving. Skills like how to disagree appropriately, how to accept no answers. Whew, that's a hard one. When you are autistic and you're kind of more rigid in your thinking, sometimes you have a hard time letting things go and dropping subjects, which is part of being able to accept a no answer or to accept criticism. Also, you're going to teach how to accept consequences. If you're going to discipline them, you need to be predictable and they need to be able to predict how to handle the situation. So they need the skill of accepting consequences. Of course, they need disagree appropriately skill too. So each one of these skills has steps associated with them. There are other videos here on this channel that goes into more detail about some of these skills, so be sure to start to look those up as you're getting familiar with some of the teaching self-government type of parenting. But probably one of the biggest things that your high-functioning autistic teen needs is to know exactly how you will talk to them when something goes wrong. When you are doing the disciplining, what are the words that are going to come out of your mouth? They need to know that, and you need to stick to it. So in my TSG parenting course and in my books and things for parents, I talk about the skill sets for correcting children and how to help them when they go completely to back brain or they go completely out of instructional control. How do I help them get back to a place of calmness? There is a dialogue that I go through that they know and understand and that they know how to use to help point them back toward calmness, back toward front brain, so that they can solve problems together. Oftentimes with autism, an autistic person has higher levels of anxiety. This means that being able to drop the subject is easier said than done. It can take a lot of practice, but a person can learn to do it. I worked for many years with troubled teens who had autism or who had impulse control problems, emotional regulation problems. I know that a person can choose to stay calm. They can choose to drop subjects, even when something goes in a way that they didn't like or they weren't planning on. Speaking of being predictable, pre-teaching is like your magic pill. Not that there really is a magic pill or some special trick to parenting that makes everything better. Wouldn't that be nice? But there is this magic pill, I guess we'll call it, called pre-teaching. When you pre-teach what is coming up before the moment actually occurs, even if it's seconds before the moment occurs, you're able to set the brain in the right place and to prepare the person for success. Your autistic teen will appreciate as much advanced warning as you can give. Any amount of pre-teaching is going to decrease anxiety and help them succeed. Everyone needs to know that calmness is possible and can be a choice. Doesn't matter if you're autistic or not, you can choose calmness. I have seen parents who are autistic choose to be calm with their children and learn all of these skills and principles of self-government. And I have seen teens and children and toddlers who are autistic also learn these skills and principles of self-government. Your life is about to change as you learn these principles and skills of self-government. And the first step of change should be that step toward calmness. So I have a free gift for you. It is my Calm Parenting Toolkit. There are 10 tools for calmness that will help you have more calmness in your parenting so that you can start learning these skills that we're talking about. The Calm Parenting Toolkit is linked in the description below this video. If you click on the link that says teachselfgov.com/toolkit, then you can have that Calm Parenting Toolkit for free. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.